Voice, 17104, Harrisburg, Pennsylvania. Touching lives with the power of internet radio.
You really about to do it? 40 acres in the mule. This is bigger than the music. You really about to do it?
Yes, we're really about to do it. Welcome to the all-new Ron Chappell Show. We come to you from Harrisburg, PA. Now, the focus of the Ron Chappell Show is new businesses in Harrisburg newsmakers. We feature a street report from our street reporter. We have community announcements, and we also have a sound-off line where you can call in as Harrisburg residents and sound off about any of your concerns in the city. We'll begin now with our street reporter, Khaldoon Rashid. Good afternoon, Khaldoon. Are you there?
Hey, good afternoon, man. How you doing?
Volume up, please, Chris.
Hello?
Go right ahead, Khaldoon. You're live, bro.
Oh, okay. All right. Well, greetings to you, Ron, Chris, and to all our listening viewers out there. Today's street report is going to be brief because it's a full schedule. I want to start off by talking about the former Harrisburg East Mall. Harrisburg Mall is now the Swadara Exchange, the 60-acre mixed-use businesses community located at Paxton Street and I-83. Upon completion, we'll have new business offices and retail spaces for new businesses, and will be available for anyone interested. Renovations have already begun at the Swadara Exchange. I'll keep you posted as this story develops. In Allison Hill, over 17,000 people are living there at last count, which means a lot of familiar restaurants like Sereno's Pizza on Dairy Street and the Allison Hill Farmers Market. But where did the name Allison Hill come from? It came from an early Harrisburg landowner named William Allison, who owned farms on the ground we now walk on. My birthday is tomorrow, on April 25th, 2025. I thank God for his blessings. For years, I never told anyone who shared the same birthday with me. Guess who, y'all? I was born on the same day as Al Pacino. And that's it for the street report. That's the scoop I got, so that there's plenty to get the rest of the guests in. Thanks, Ron.
Thank you, Khaldoon, and happy birthday.
Yeah, thanks, man. 67.
Woo, 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 woo,
All right.
I made it.
That's what's up, man. That's what's up. Happy birthday to you, Khaldoon.
Well, if you're 67, you must have phony ID because you sure don't look 67.
All right.
Okay.
Thanks, Khaldoon. Enjoy your special day, bro.
Yes, sir, indeed.
Okay.
And now for Pastor Chris Thomas with community announcements.
All right, bro. Again, first announcement, happy birthday to Khaldoon, again, the street reporter from the Ron Chappell Show and also from The Voice 17104. Again, our first announcement is brought to you by the Ron Chappell Show. Again, if you want to be a guest, again, a sponsor, again, talk about your businesses, your products, and or services, feel free. Again, reach out to Brother Ron or here at The Voice, and we would love to field your inquiry about being a part of a potential future podcast. Three quick announcements because we do have a full schedule, Ron. As you do know, the Harrisburg Alumni Chapter of the Delta Sigma Theta Sorority in partnership. Plenty of partnerships going on. They're partnering to produce and present a candidates forum. Yes, you heard right. Moderated by James Crummell, Daybreak News anchor of WHTM ABC 27. And again, the invited candidates are the city mayoral candidates, also the Harrisburg City Council candidates, and don't forget the city controller as well. That's going on Thursday, April the 24th. Again, that's 6:30 until 8:30 p.m. Again, that's going on at the Omega House, Omega Sci-Fi Fraternity, Inc. Again, that's at 2020 State Street in Harrisburg, PA. Two quick more announcements here, Ron, real quick. Fundraiser going on. None other Lamont Jones for mayor, Friday, April 25th, my brother. 8 until 10 p.m. Doors open at 7. Again, me and us, famous Harrisburg group here, the Unknown DJ, comedians to be announced. Again, that's going on at 2201 Woodlawn Street in Harrisburg. And again, more information, you can reach out to Tasha by calling 717-592-1596. And last but not least, Ron, let me see here. Harrisburg City Council candidate panel going on, and that's brought to you by Power to the Hill. 6 to 8 p.m. May 1st at the Christ Lutheran Church, my brother. Again, that's at 124 South 13th Street. More information, reach out to them at Power to the Hill. Again, their phone number is 717-623-1097. Now back to you, Ron Chappell.
Okay, thank you, Pastor Chris Thomas, and a very, very, very colorful seasonal shirt you have
Thank
there.
you, sir.
I
Thank you, sir.
just want to comment. Now, we have been accused by some here on the All New Ryan Chapel Show of being biased in favor of Lamont Jones, candidate for mayor of Harrisburg. But as I previously said, and I still state, if there's another candidate out there running for mayor that has a fundraiser plan, or scheduled rather, or a meet and greet, well then please contact the station and we will be sure to make that announcement also. Okay, well today we are introducing and interviewing a judicial candidate, a candidate for judge, a Dauphin County judge. Now, as you know, for the past 2 months, we have been interviewing various candidates for political office that will be appearing on the May 20th ballot here in Harrisburg. But because we're interviewing a judicial candidate, I thought that I'd be a rather creative in this approach here. And so I'm calling this, as you saw the ad, this is a deposition, but it's going to be a deposition / pre-trial. I say that because I believe that the ultimate trial in this case will be on May the 20th. And so right now, I'm deeming all of you viewers, all you Harrisburg residents, you Dauphin County residents, as jurors. And so what you're going to hear the candidate for Dauphin County court being questioned by a panel that we have here in the studio, and we'll also invite your input in your phone calls later on in the broadcast. We have two that are in house now, two questioners, and we have one that's en route. And so let me introduce the ones that we have in studio today. We'll begin with the podcast host. She's the host of the very popular podcast, What It Do Wednesdays. She is a returning guest on the all-new Ryan Chapel Show, and that's Miss Shantae White. Good afternoon, Shantae.
Good afternoon, everyone.
Okay, how you doing today?
I'm doing gravy. I'm happy.
Okay, great. Okay, and the next guest we want to introduce is a first-time guest here on the all-new Ryan Chapel Show, and we're honored to have her in the studio with us. And she is the host of the Black Newsbeat show here in Harrisburg. We're going to get to know her and get to know about the Black Newsbeat show. She's also an executive with the YPOC, for the Young Professionals of Color organization here in Harrisburg. So Chris and Shantae, join me as we welcome Dr. Kamika G. Campbell.
Hi, everybody.
Welcome.
Thank you guys for having me. This is great. That's my first time being actually on the show.
Chris, please put the camera on her.
I love the studio. It is gorgeous.
Thank you so much.
I love it in here. Amazing.
Thank you.
Okay, well, thank you for joining us, and tell us a little bit about Black Newsbeat, please.
Oh, absolutely. So Black Newsbeat, we're in our 5th season. We actually broadcast at Open Stage. It is Black Newsbeat is a project of Young Professionals of Color, Greater Harrisburg, and Open Stage Theater. We started this show in 2020 as a response to having good news to share and really showcase the flora and fauna of Harrisburg, all the beautiful gems that sit right below the surface. You know, people always talk a lot of nonsense about Harrisburg, and I've come to love it here. We are transplants, my husband and I, Bossier Vincent, who I believe was on the show recently.
Yes.
He's running
great
for city council, number 2 on the ballot, we'll plug. So we came here, both of us, for school and work, and stayed because we loved it. And we always hear people say there's nothing to do in here. There's nothing to do. There's nothing here. Yes, there's so much here and so much richness that we've been able to make a life here, and we wanted to showcase that with this show. And we've had over, in the last 5 seasons, we've had over 300 guests, over 90 businesses showcased, authors, artists, singers, dancers, rappers. We've had it all on the show. This season has been dedicated to a lot more political things that are happening around the region. We start the show every Black History Month. Is a new season. So we start the last Thursday in Black History Month starts the new season of the show. So we just started our 5th season, and so we're really excited. It's been a whirlwind. We are really thankful to Open Stage to opening up the theater for us and letting us be there and call it our home. And also just showcasing the kind of collaboration that we can have across the city with different businesses and different venues. So it's been great. We are also doing candidate interviews on the show as well. So yeah, we've had 8 different city council, 7 different city council out of the 11 different council members or candidates who want to be city council members on the show. And it's been a great learning experience. And I always try to shout out people who are running for office because it's real hard. So I'm happy that, there are people putting their best face forward and putting themselves out there. It's a difficult thing to run for office. So thanks for letting me tell you a little bit about the show. Appreciate that.
Okay, we as I say, we're honored to have you here, and we do look forward to your next visit. We would like to have you here next time as the very special guest.
Absolutely.
Okay, let me tell you a little bit about the candidate. Now, first of all, judge is a very, very, very important office in your community, and you should understand that you want someone sitting there that you may happen to go before that's going to not only be fair, but it's going to, that's going to be relevant. I say relative in the way that they can relate to you as a person. They understand the community you come from. So you want someone to be firm, yet you want someone to be fair. And so that's an office that we really, really should key in on and pay close attention to who you may be standing before if that ever happens. Before we interview or question the candidate for Dauphin County Court, let me tell you a little bit about her. Okay, she's a counsel at the V. Patel legal team. She's a founder and managing attorney at Williams Law Group, LLC. She's a former commissioner of Susquehanna Township Court here in Dauphin County. She's a former adjunct professor at Lebanon Valley College. She's a former judicial law clerk at Commonwealth Court under the courtship of the Honorable Lori A. Dumas. She's a former senior assistant district attorney at Franklin County's District Attorney's Office, and there's more. She's a former assistant district attorney at York Court. She's a former judicial law clerk in the York County Court of Common Pleas. She's a former certified legal team intern at Lehigh County Public Defender's Office, and she's a former law clerk at Holt Law. She's a former legislative research analyst at the PA House of Representatives, the Democratic Caucus. She received her Juris Doctorate degree from University Commonwealth Law School. And with all this extensive background, I guess you could imagine that she would probably be about 100 years old. But no, she isn't. She isn't at all. And so join me, Shantae. Join me, Dr. Campbell. Join me, Chris Thomas, as we welcome to the show candidate for Dauphin County Court, the Honorable Tasha C. Williams.
Thank you.
Welcome, Ms. Williams. Chris, please put the camera on Ms. Williams. Okay, now welcome, Ms. Williams.
Thank you all very much.
Okay, so you'll be interviewed today by our interviewers here. And as you know, as I said, the viewers, the residents of Dauphin County, they will be the jurors. They will be the jurors. And so I'm deeming this as a deposition slash pre-trial, with the trial to be held in this poetic way on May the 20th, okay? May the 20th. And if you're found I don't want to say not guilty because you're not being charged with anything. But I'll just say it this way. If you win that trial, well, then you'll be our next Dauphin County judge on the bench here in Harrisburg. And so before we begin, would you like to make any opening statement?
Yes, thank you so much again for having me on the show. I am Tasha Williams, and I'm running to be your next judge on our Dauphin County Court of Common Pleas. We have a very big election coming up on May the 20th. It is our primary election. And what makes this run different from my past two previous runs is that there are 2 seats open. This is the downtown county courthouse. So we had Judge Cherry, who retired, and then a seat was added due to an increase in population. So there will be an opportunity to elect 2 new judges to the downtown Dauphin County Courthouse on May the 20th. And you've already done a great job highlighting my past professional experiences. And I think that it is very important that we have a bench that looks like the community that it serves. I've worked on both sides of the aisle in terms of being a defense attorney and a prosecutor. And when I'm in the courtroom every day, I see a lot of black and brown people, and the bench should reflect that. And so I am running for judge to bring my perspective, which is a very different perspective. I am younger, but I'm not as young as some people think that I am. So, I do have varied experiences in life and professionally, where I believe I can relate to most of the litigants who do come before the court on both sides. So I have experience working with victims as well as defendants, as well as plaintiffs when talking about court in the civil context. And so I just hope that the voters will help get me over the edge this time, as I came extremely close in the past 2 runs. So with that, I will turn it over to our wonderful interviewers here.
Okay, thank you, Ms. Williams.
You're welcome.
Now, because this is a deposition, I want to ask first, before I give you the oath, before you take the oath, do you believe in God?
Oh, yes.
Okay, well, would you raise your right hand, please? Okay, do you promise to tell the truth, the whole truth, openly and honestly, answer the questions that you'll be asked during this deposition?
I do, so long as ethically I am permitted to answer those questions, absolutely.
Okay, so that's done. And now we'll move on to our first questioner, and that'll be Dr. Kamika Campbell.
Oh, I thank you so much. Well, Tasha, so they said they couldn't hear me. I don't know what that means out there, but is this better?
You should be good.
All right, somebody was like, we can't hear you, that's fine. Well, it's always good to see Tasha. Tasha
Good
is
to see you.
actually a friend of mine, and so it's very wonderful to be here to actually get to ask these questions. So I'm going to be tough, but fair. Okay. No, but you alluded to this in your intro. What do you say to people that have said to you, that I know have said to you, why are you running for a 3rd time? Right? Why don't you just give it up, Tasha? Why don't you just, throw in the towel on this judge runs and do something else? And I know you've heard that before, but I want you to tell the folks who are tuning in today what your answer to that is.
Thank you. That is a great question. I have been posed that question, and the answer that I give back is, why wouldn't I run again? I do recognize that in our county, judges who win typically only run once, and they win the first time. So it's a very interesting dynamic here in Dauphin County, whereas in New York County, I'm familiar with several judges who had to run upwards of 3 and 4 times before they made it. And so I'm not someone who gives up in the face of perceived defeat. And I recognize that the need is there for me, or if not me specifically, someone who is like-minded, to sit on that bench and preside over cases that overwhelmingly affect people who look just like me. And I recognize the history of Dauphin County, the history of who has dominated Dauphin County as far as being in control, and so that's not going to be something that's going to take place overnight. I am a registered Democrat, and only 4 Democrats have ever been elected to the bench. And that's for the 250 or so year history of the Dauphin County Court of Common Pleas. So it's not something that's going to happen overnight. And with 2 seats open, I could not sit this race out. So I had to run.
Thank you.
Okay, Ms. White.
So for the people, they would like to know, what would you bring different that is currently not perceived as in the courthouse now? As far as what different practices do you see coming forth as going into this race, and if you win, what will you do?
So that's a great question. I don't know if I've talked to enough people who come in and out of the courthouse as litigants to understand what is of most concern. So I can really only speak to what I've personally observed as an attorney, and then what I have gleaned from people I have come into contact with through representing them. And this is not directed to any particular judge, or honestly in any particular county. I do recognize I am running for judge in Dauphin County, but the legal system as a whole, I think, we have to just think about it, because what we do in one county can affect what happens in other counties and in other jurisdictions. But I would certainly bring professionalism to the bench, keeping in mind that no matter what kind of day I may have had, or what kind of night I may have had, I would not bring that into the courtroom by being unprofessional, insolent, disrespectful towards litigants, staff, or attorneys who would appear before the court. So that's first and foremost. I do strongly believe in alternatives to incarceration, and I know that there's more to the court system than incarceration and the criminal side, but it's, I would say, an aspect of the court that people care deeply about, likely because it involves our liberty interests and whether or not we remain free or are in custody in a penal institution somewhere. So I'm a firm believer in alternatives to incarceration for low-level offenders and or those offenders who have clear substance abuse and or mental health issues, which is a big problem in our society. So those are just 2 things that immediately come to mind. We've got to get a hold of what's going on with our children, specifically in the city of Harrisburg, with respect to violent crime, illegal gun possession. And so I would be looking to work with all the community stakeholders to come up with a solution, looking at how to continue executing and maybe even better execute the GVI program. Having been a prosecutor in York County, I'm familiar with GVI. I have seen it work, and I would love to see that here in Dauphin County. So those are just some of the things that come to mind that hopefully the people would recognize within me as bringing something that they may not be seeing currently.
What is the GVI?
So GVI is an acronym, Group Violence Intervention, and it's a concept that seeks to reduce gun violence and just crime generally that is perpetrated by young people. It doesn't really embrace that term gang, as that has a negative connotation, but the research does show that young people tend to commit crimes together in groups. And so it's there's a national model, but it has to be particularized to each individual jurisdiction because every place is different, and that's something that Dauphin County, specifically within Harrisburg City, is working towards.
Okay, Pastor Chris Thomas.
Sure. Let me see if I get my camera on here.
Okay, we can hear you. Just keep.
Okay,
the camera
sure.
on, Natasha.
Okay, Latasha, again, welcome to the studio. Welcome to the Ron Chapel Show. How would you handle a case where your personal beliefs conflict with legal precedent, ma'am?
Great question. I have no problems drawing a line in the sand and separating one from the other. Personal friends and family comment about that all the time with me. It's just never been an issue. Judges don't create law. The role of a judge is to interpret the law and then apply it as it was written by our state legislature. There are times when the facts of a case may call into question, well, which side of the fence does the law prevail? And that's where the judge will hear the facts and then apply the law accordingly to those facts. But I would have no issue separating any personal belief I would have. And that's something that comes up in my day-to-day practice as an attorney. I am one of 5 court-appointed attorneys for Dauphin County who represents juveniles, children, accused of breaking the law. And an issue that comes up frequently is whether or not their rights were violated when the police seized a firearm off of their person or from out of their property, maybe their home, their bedroom. And so while I personally don't stand for a child sleeping with an AR-15 under his pillow or bed, as the defense attorney, I place that to the side and I advocate for my client and determine whether or not the police violated their privacy rights when searching them and or seizing them. And if the law says that the right was violated, then we proceed forward and we battle it out in court, irrespective of my personal belief that no child should have that type of weaponry at their disposal.
Well said, and thank you, Natasha. Well said.
Thank you, Ms. White.
So, piggybacking off of, I know that piggyback word, huh? Piggybacking off of the question that he asked and the answer
It
that you
feels weird
gave.
not looking at you, but I know the camera's here.
I know,
Look
I know.
at you anyway.
Okay, that's fine. Piggybacking off of your answer with the GVI program, that is something that they are trying to introduce or have introduced somewhat here in Dauphin County, but it hasn't really been implemented. What are your ideas on getting that actually completed here like it is in York, because it's actually working and it's not really showing any momentum here in Dauphin County?
And it definitely does take buy-in from various individuals in the community. I think that we have to look at, you're probably a little older than me, but I would just say, generally speaking, our parents' generation, we cannot leave that generation out. So I'm speaking of people who were likely born somewhere in the 50s. I think that's the generation where things sort of went south in our community with people who look like me and you.
Right.
And so I think we have to just tackle each generation because a lot of our children are, they're raising themselves. The family unit is completely broken, and that's just something that we have to be honest with ourselves about. And it's not completely broken because of dysfunction. I think there's a small percentage where you have parents who are just, they're out working and the kids are latchkey kids, as they're called. So there's not proper supervision. But then you have an overwhelming majority where there is dysfunction and we have to address it. So looking at the family structure within Black and brown communities, addressing that dysfunction, but not leaving out the generations that precede the current youth. So the 13, 14, 15-year-olds, we have to look at probably those kids' great-grandparents, because there has to be a shift in mindset. Otherwise, we won't go anywhere. So if that answers your question, I think we have to just generationally go back to the people who were born in the 1950s. I think they were the ones susceptible to that crack era, and things just kind of went downhill from there.
Okay, if I can just give a brief message. We have folks that are starting to call in now, and we first we thank you for viewing the program, but I just want to ask you if you can refrain from calling in for about 15 more minutes, okay? About 15 more minutes, we'll open up the telephone lines, and then we'll be glad to receive your calls. Right now, let's go to Dr. Campbell.
Yes, thank you. So my question has to do with our community and equity. So Dauphin County is an interesting county because we have the city of Harrisburg here in the county, and then we also have above Peters Mountain, very rural, and it's a very different landscape, just going even from municipality to the county. How would you, as a judge, or what role should a judge play truly in ensuring equity and cultural competence in the courtroom?
That's a great question, and I think that just comes from a judge's experience. Judges do have to remain up to date with educational credits, if you will, but that doesn't always necessarily address cultural competence, like you mentioned. So I think there it is incumbent upon the voter to do their research and look to see the backgrounds and experiences of the candidates who are running for judge. I'm a city girl. I'm born and raised in Washington, D.C. I'm a transplant just like you. I've been here almost 20 years now, and I've lived on this side of the mountain, but in various different communities. I lived in the city for a while. I've lived in Swadera Township. I currently live in Susquehanna Township. But in my work as a prosecutor, I've worked with victims from various different backgrounds, from the city, from urban areas, and even from the country. Particularly when I was working in Franklin County, I worked a lot with victims, witnesses, and even defendants who had very different life experiences and backgrounds. And I think that should be a personal goal to ensure that a judge is up on the times. It shouldn't be something that is mandated, but a judge should take steps to do that on their own. For instance, if a litigant were to appear before them and they're using terminology or speaking about something which the judge has no familiarity, it's that judge's responsibility to go and educate herself about what that litigant is talking about so that they're better informed the next time someone with a similar background should appear before them. And that's something that I would do. It's something I currently do. So not a judge yet, but as an attorney, I dialogue with my clients and I do my research to better understand, especially the young people, the children that I represent. I'm 43 years old, so I'm not a spring chicken anymore. So I don't know all of the latest of what, in terms of their vernacular and what's going on. But I make it my business to do my research and learn. And that will continue if I am elected as judge.
Thank you.
Okay.
You're welcome.
Okay, Ms. Williams, I'd like to ask you about the Public Defender's Office. and the propensity a lot of times for indigent, let's see, what's the word? Those that are charged, defendants. It seems like they're always coaxed into accepting a guilty plea, giving a guilty plea in matters. And I think that in time that can work against them. But can you speak to that? You know, first of all, why is it seem like a lot of public defenders are so apt to ask indigent defendants to plead guilty for a lesser punishment, and how does that and can that ultimately work against them if they happen to have to come before the court again?
Yeah, so that is a very complex process. I don't know that it is the attorney who, and I'm specifically using the word attorney because one thing that I have learned is many people don't recognize that a public defender is an attorney. And that's understandable. I mean, the name public defender, there's nothing within that term that suggests lawyer or attorney. But they are attorneys, licensed attorneys, went to law school, took the bar. And what will tend to happen is the government will make an offer because, very simply put, everyone who catches a criminal case will not be able to go to trial. Our system would completely implode. There's just not enough time. There's not enough courtrooms. There's not enough judges. It's just impossible. And so the government will often make an offer, and the attorney is required to relate that offer to the client and not just make a unilateral decision to withhold that information from the client. And then it's the attorney's job then to discuss the consequences of a guilty plea, the advantages and disadvantages of going to trial. And so, you know, on a case-by-case basis is how this should play out. But we know that it does not always play out that way, where the evidence is evaluated by the attorney, and then in consultation with the client, they talk, and then the client should then make a decision about whether it's in his or her best interest to plead guilty, and if so, to plead guilty to what charges. So it's a process that definitely needs some overhaul, and unfortunately the caseloads are a lot. And so I think generally most public defenders, attorneys, will do the best that they can do with what they have. Pennsylvania, the funding for public defense comes through the county. Most other states, funding comes through state dollars. And so there is a lack of resources, even down to actual attorneys in the public defender's offices. They move around and rotate a lot. And so yeah, it's a very complex issue with many, many different components involved.
Okay. I think Chris is handing me something here. Okay, let me just ask you about this before we move on to another question. There's a rumor on the street that if a defendant were to fire two public defendants, so then the court would appoint them a paid lawyer. Is that true?
Okay, all right. So.
Or should I ask that again?
No, I understand. I was reworking it in my brain. Got it. So I don't know that there's an actual fixed number in terms of how many opportunities a defendant, well, I say client because I'm a defense attorney now, so it feels weird saying defendant. If I were a prosecutor, I would say defendant, so I'll just say client. So a client, may have issues with an attorney, I'll say a public defender attorney, and ask the court for a replacement. usually that replacement would be someone from outside of the public defender's office, not
Yes, that's what I'm asking.
yes, not another public defender. So then the court will look to its court appointment list, and they are private attorneys who have a contract with Dauphin County to represent litigants going to trial, either juveniles, adults, or other areas of the law. And so typically the court will then look to the court appointment list and appoint someone, but I don't know that there's this fixed number that they get. Now, after so many attempts, the court is going to run out of lawyers because the list isn't that long. And then we always have to be mindful of there not being a conflict. So if, a particular court-appointed attorney represents a co-defendant in a particular matter, or a victim in a particular matter, then that person is removed from consideration. And so there's a lot to consider with that as well. How many lawyers are available? And is this a client that is truly being overlooked? Or maybe they have mental health issues and are like a difficult client, because that does happen as well.
Thank you, Dr. Cameron.
My next question, right? Okay. I have more questions around, okay, you can pick. Community and equity or courtroom management and public trust? Go ahead.
Let's take the first one.
All right. To the best of your ability, how would you work? We all know there is, some people will deny that, but we know there is racial and economic disparities in sentencing. And in pretrial decisions. So how can you work, and a lot of this is difficult for the position of a judge to kind of directly affect all the time, but for the things that would be in your control as a court of common pleas judge, how would you work to reduce racial economic disparities in sentencing or pretrial decisions?
Great question, and you are correct in that at times that is difficult to address, and the reason is because oftentimes the parties negotiate what the sentence will be before that matter comes before the court, meaning the prosecutor and the client and his attorney. And so unless it's something really egregious, a judge typically won't disturb that agreement. I've seen it happen before, though, where the parties negotiated it literally just happened to me in a different county. We had negotiated an agreement, and when it was time for sentencing, the judge said, "Oh, absolutely not," and that was frustrating. But
did they go higher or lower than what you guys said?
Oh, she went higher.
Oh, wow.
She went higher.
Wow.
My client is an African American man. I don't know what she actually. It was very weird. She had looked up his background before we appeared in court, and I would classify that as ex parte communication. Judges are not permitted to do independent research. They are to rely on the evidence that is before them, that is presented by the parties. And so that was very inappropriate, in my opinion.
Did she get in trouble for that?
The client could certainly try to get recourse with the Judicial Conduct Board, for sure. But so I say that to say that oftentimes sentences are negotiated between the parties. But here in Dauphin County, the prosecution I've seen is they will embrace the idea of open pleas, and an open plea is where a client will plead guilty before the court, but there is no agreement as to sentencing, and that is left to the judge to decide. And you have to look at the individual circumstances. Pennsylvania has guidelines for sentencing that are promulgated by the Sentencing Commission. They are guidelines and guidelines only, which means that the judge can sentence someone within those guidelines, or they can deviate up or down. So I would take all of that into consideration, as well as the person's background. Most people who appear before sentencing, where it's either an open plea or the person went to trial and was found guilty and is appearing before the court for sentencing, the court can order a pre-sentence investigation where the court is provided with some level of background about the client to understand, so to speak, how that person ended up before the court. What is in this person's background? What were their struggles and challenges? What are the things that they've excelled in, to help determine what an appropriate sentence should be. And so, I don't know if that fully answered your question, but, you know, if I am elected, I would apply all of those principles fairly across the board and truly take into consideration any mitigation, which, you know, are not excuses for criminal behavior, but more so explanations. It's the why. Why have you committed this crime? And what can I do to hopefully help you not appear before me again, at least not in this context?
Okay, thank you. Okay, one final question, Ms. White, for the sake of time, you have one last question before we open up the telephone lines.
Absolutely. The last question that I had was in regards to the way that the people come before you. So, for instance, I posted a video of a teenage fight on a street the other day, real quick. The parent was out there willing to bat. She was allowing it to happen. Do you feel that those parents should be charged as far as that's concerned, because it leads to much more violence amongst the youngsters, per se?
Absolutely. Now, the thing is, the parents have to be held accountable. So I would assume these are probably parents that are in their late 20s. So they're probably the grandchildren of that generation that I spoke about earlier. Yeah. Now, in holding them accountable, what does that look like? Because, you know, once the police levy charges, now they are having to appear in court. If they have a job, now they're potentially losing money to appear in court, coming up with money for bail. If they can't afford bail, now they're sitting in Dauphin County Prison awaiting the charges. Now the kids aren't being supervised, but were they being supervised in the first place? I mean, look at this big old fight. So there's so much to consider, but they absolutely have to be held accountable, maybe as a condition of their bail. Be mandated into a parenting program. It's about parenting, but I feel for people that look like me and you, do we really know our history? Do we understand our history? We have to mandate some type of educational component with this, and like I said, maybe we make it a condition of their bail. You want to stay free, then we'll find the money for childcare, but you're going to be in this class on Tuesdays and Thursdays from this time to that time, because you have to slowly undo your thought process, because what happened in your life and in your brain that would make you think that this type of conduct is okay.
Right.
We often talk about, how we got to these shores on this country, but I always start the history with way before we got to these shores. And we are descendants of royalty, and too many of us, unfortunately, are not aware of that.
Exactly.
But they're going to learn if y'all get me on that bench.
Exactly.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
We just have to move along now. So we'll open up the telephone lines now. If you want to call in and speak directly to candidate Tasha C. Williams, now's your opportunity. The number is 717-889-7181. We just ask that you be succinct with your question, please. Okay, the lines are open. Okay, and while we await the call, if a call comes, we have a tradition here for our special guest on the all new Ron Chapel show, Ms. Williams. And so I want to carry on that tradition right now.
Aww.
And present you with a little token of our appreciation of you being here.
Oh, that's so nice. Thank you. Lovely.
Thank you very much.
Well, you're quite welcome.
These are some water.
And so where are you now that we're calling in during the questioning? Now is your opportunity. We have about 10 minutes left in the program. And so if you want to call in and speak directly with Ms. Williams, if there's questions that you want to ask that hasn't been asked, well then now's your opportunity.
And while we wait, I'll just say, the election again is Tuesday, May 20th. The last day to register to vote, well, I'll just say is May 3rd. It's really later than that, but just keep May 3rd on your brain so that, no one misses out. You can apply for your mail-in ballot if you know you have an upcoming medical procedure or you're going to be out of town, and you can vote by mail. There's also absentee for anyone who's listening but is physically somewhere else, and they won't physically be here on May the 20th to vote at the precinct. And there are 4 candidates running. There are 2 seats. I know we didn't really get into all of that, but if you're a registered Democrat, you will be able to vote for me. Judges at the magistrate level and the common pleas level are permitted to cross-file when they're running for judge, meaning they can be registered in one party but apply to appear on the opposite party's ballot. So for those of you listening who are Republicans, I chose not to cross-file as I am a Democrat, and it just wouldn't suit my purpose to cross-file for this race. So you won't be able to vote for me in May if you are a Republican, but there is a Democrat who will be on your Republican ballot that you can vote for. Now, with respect to Democrats, those who are listening who are Democrats, I will be number 4 on your Democratic ballot. And so I just ask that you would consider me, vote for me on May 20th. I'll be number 4 on your Democratic ballot. And then if we're successful, I will then proceed to the election on November 4th, which is our general election. But I don't get to November 4th without your vote on May 20th.
That's right.
Absolutely. Yes, will you tell me we have a phone call, Chris?
Yes, sir.
Okay, you're on the all-new Ron Chapel show with Tasha C. Williams, candidate for Dauphin County Court of Appeals. Court of Common Pleas. I stand corrected. Okay, who are we speaking with?
Hi, my name is Olivia.
Yes, Olivia. Your question or comment, please.
Yes, as a defense attorney, is there one case that you've had that you would use as an example as a judge when you're elected to the bench that stood out to you that you would use as an example as a judge on the bench?
That is a great question, Miss Olivia. Thank you. So the bulk of my practice right now involves defending people who are already convicted and they're looking to overturn their judgment of sentence. I've seen some very crazy things in that regard. But when I think of clients who have not yet been convicted and are going to trial, there is a case that does come to mind wherein the long story short is that the client was accused of stalking and threatening his girlfriend. And he went to trial on that case, and it was a jury trial, and while that trial was underway, the client made a Facebook video expressing his displeasure with the court system, with the process, and that he believed that the county where his case was being tried was racist. Everyone was a racist and in cahoots with each other, to include his own defense attorney. Well, someone saw the video, alerted the judge. The judge declared a mistrial in the case, revoked his bail, and so he had to go sit in jail until that case was brought to trial again. And then to make matters worse, they then charged him with new charges of aggravated jury tampering. And so I was contacted shortly thereafter and represented him on the jury tampering case. And I thought just at first glance that it was insane that he was being charged for expressing his views about his case and the court system on a Facebook page that he owned. And so I litigated that case and brought to the court's attention there were some serious concerns with the First Amendment. And I think what the prosecution took issue with was the fact that he named the names of the jurors, and it wasn't in a bad way. He was simply naming them and then describing their racial group to which they belonged, letting the viewership know that there were all white people on his jury and only one black person. But in my mind, that would be no different than if his viewership were sitting in the courtroom listening and observing and seeing. And so there were some serious First Amendment concerns, freedom of speech. He didn't say or do anything threatening. And so I litigated that, and we were able to get the charges dismissed. So that case never made it to trial. And I thought that that was overzealous prosecution and them just asserting their power and flexing, forgetting all the while that somebody's life and freedom was hanging in the balance. So that's just one case that comes to mind, Miss Olivia. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Miss Olivia. We have time for one more call.
Hey, Ron, there is a question on the table, if I could interject that from
Please.
social media here.
Yes,
Anna
quickly,
White,
we have 10 minutes left in the program.
Sure. Anna White said to Latasha, what do you perceive the role of a judge should be in recognizing community resources and nonprofits when it comes to restorative justice practices, ma'am? Please and thank you.
Thank you, Ms. White. I believe that the judges should be very much involved, because how, as a judge, can I, with confidence, send someone to a program, whether they're a juvenile, an adult, whether it's behavioral, whether it's mental health, substance abuse, if I know nothing about the program, if I know nothing about who's running the program, if I know nothing about how the program is structured, if I don't have any data about the successes of said program, and again, if I don't know about the background of the individuals, I am all about community programs having a diverse workforce, if you will, in terms of people's experiences. I think there's great value in people who have had a troubled past, who have taken the steps to do the work to recognize where they went astray and turn their lives around. But we also want to make sure that there's still not a criminal element involved, because you do have some people where, unfortunately, it's been a challenge for them to move past that street element, that street mentality, that street way of thinking, and we don't want to have that type of influence over someone who's already in a very vulnerable state, and that I, as a judge, am sending to get help and to get redirection. So it's important that the work has been done on self for those individuals who are part of the community programs, to ensure that, you know, they are at a point in their life where they can pour back into the community.
Okay, thank you, Ms. Williams, and thank you
welcome.
for the question, Ms. White. Okay, we're about to close the program, and so I'm going to ask Ms. Williams if you can succinctly give us a closing statement, if you care to make one.
Thank you again for having me here. Thank you, Pastor Chris. and Dr. Campbell and Ms. White. It's really been my pleasure. Anytime I have an opportunity to address the viewership, the voters, I'm grateful for the opportunity. As I stated earlier, this is my third time running. I don't plan on giving up. And it's my passion. The work that I do is really not for a paycheck. Please believe that. You can, look up the contracts with the county commissioners and see it is absolutely not about the money. It's because I see a need for the community, for people who look like me, and just that everyday average person who is poor, who doesn't have access to resources, who is deserving of quality representation. Now, from the bench, it would not be representation in the sense that I would be a judge and the attorneys would be appearing before me. But I am still an advocate in the sense that I am an advocate for justice no matter what. And I would bring that to the bench. Nothing about me will change. It's just my role is changing. And as I stated earlier in my interview, as a defense attorney, I have to separate my personal feelings from the desires and wishes of my client. I have to take off my hat as, woman and mom and citizen in our community. And I have to advocate for what my client wants, no matter how ridiculous it may be. And so it is now time for me to step into a different role. Because while it's important to ensure that law enforcement is doing their job properly and not violating a child's rights or any person's rights by improperly searching them or seizing contraband from them, that is important, but it still does not address what is underlying, which is why does that child have that weapon in the first place? And I can't really address that as defense attorney, but I can address that as judge. And that is what I'm looking forward to doing, because we are losing our children to the state correctional institution and to the grave, and it does not have to be that way. And that's all that I have for you this afternoon.
Okay, well, we want to thank you very much, Mr. Tasha C. Williams. I want to thank Dr. Kamika G. Campbell. Be sure to catch Black News Beat, and tell them the time again, Miss.
For the show?
Yes. Yes,
So
ma'am.
the show is second and fourth Wednesdays at 7 p.m. We are in studio and online. Happy hour is at 6 at the Courtship Cabaret Bar, and the show starts at 7.
Thank you. Okay, and Miss Shantae White, podcast host extraordinaire. Tell us briefly, please, about What It Do Wednesdays.
What It Do Wednesday also premieres Wednesdays at 7 p.m., which is why I have not been on Black News Beats, just for the record. It's
So
not
she
because
has been invited.
I want to go, but I feel like we should do a combination show on Wednesday. Yeah, that's gonna be coming.
we certainly can
So
do that.
7 p.m. every Wednesday.
But there are videos of both shows that people can watch
Absolutely.
at a later date.
Absolutely, yes. That's
Even
how
though
we got
Facebook changed the rules now, the lives are only available for 30 days. They
I
really
saw
piss
that.
me off
Yep.
with that.
it. Yeah, they going crazy with that.
that.
Yeah,
Make sure you're on YouTube.
I'm on TikTok.
Okay, good.
Yeah.
Okay, before we have a quick closing comment from Pastor Chris Thomas, I just want to ask Ms. Williams if you would tell everyone your website in case they want more information about you and about your candidacy and your fitness for office, which is plenty. And also, I want to ask you, when you win, will you come back on the All New Ron Chapel Show?
Thank you. I would love to be back on the show. My website is www.latasha4countyjudge.com. So that's all one word together, www.latasha4countyjudge.com. Judicial candidates have very strict rules that we have to abide by. To include, we're only allowed to endorse other judicial candidates, no other candidates. We're not allowed to fundraise for other candidates. We're not even allowed to directly fundraise for ourselves, meaning I cannot ask for money, but do with that statement as you will. I have a website, and there is a link on there for donations. And thank you.
Okay, thank you, ma'am. Chris Thomas, briefly, please.
Sure. Again, Latasha, you are a pillar and an asset to the Harrisburg and surrounding communities and areas, and we pray the city of Harrisburg comes together, really takes to heart your work that you've already put in the community and your intention, and we get you elected into office. So we wish you all the best here from the Voice 17104 and the Ron Chappell Show. Best luck to you. We look forward to seeing you at the polls.
Thank you, Pastor Chris. And if I may, just for 2 seconds, yes, the city of Harrisburg is critical. We could have won this in 2021 with the city, but I also want to just remind the viewership that it is the entire county of Dauphin. So as we talked about earlier, if you're, over St. Peter's Mountain, if you're in Lower Paxton Township, if you're in Derry Township, Swadera, Stilton, you can vote for me in this race. So thanks again, Pastor Chris.
Thank you.
Okay, and before we close, in deference to one of our questioners, Dr. Kamika Campbell, I say shout out to Vincent Becerra for Harrisburg City Council. I believe it's number 4 on the ballot, ma'am.
Number 2?
Number 2 on the ballot. I stand corrected. Number 2 on the ballot. Becerra, Vincent, he was also a guest here on the program before, and so please remember him come election day, May 20th. I want to thank Pastor Chris Thomas. I want to thank again Dr. Kamika G. Campbell. I want to thank Miss Shantae White, and I want to thank our very special guest for Dauphin County Court of Pleas Judge, Miss Latasha C. Williams. Thank you all for watching. If you feel worthy, please share the program, and thanks for calling in. And if you want to support the program, well then here's a Cash App where you can do so. Thank you for viewing. We hope that you join us again next Thursday, beginning at 12 noon on the all-new Ron Chappell Show. Have a great day.
And I'll be back.